Well, good morning. I wonder how many folks here subscribed to Disney Plus in the last few days just to watch Hamilton. I know a lot of my friends on social media have done just that. It's been a buzz and was certainly one of the movies to watch over the 4th of July weekend. Or perhaps you're a fan of the standby classic 1776. Or maybe your go-to movie for the 4th of July holiday is Independence Day, in which Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum save the world. Or maybe you find something in all three of those films or musicals to recommend them, something that speaks to you. The thing that was speaking to me about all of those stories is they all deal with people who are living in uncertain times. Now, Hamilton and 1776 both are musicals dealing with a similar time from slightly different perspectives. 1776, the older musical, told from the standard perspective of white men, about the founding of the nation, the leading up to the Declaration of Independence. Hamilton, a musical reimagining the founding of the nation and Alexander Hamilton specifically and his life, as told largely through a cast of people of color, using that story to tell the story of immigrants and the oppressed, making more connections to our lives today. And Independence Day, a movie that imagines the entire world coming together and putting aside all of our differences to fight for our very existence as humanity, told through really bad movie physics and lots of great explosions and wonderful adventure and a reimagining of the St. Crispin's Day speech from Henry V. And all of them living in uncertain times. We are certainly living in uncertain times. So did you watch any of these movies this week, these last few days? And did they speak to you? In each of these films, our heroes, though facing a massively uncertain future and living in an uncertain present, all have something to fall back upon. All call upon some deep strength, some form of faith, some anchor. Something to guide them as they go on to form a new nation, to envision a new form of government, or to save the world. They all have some form of purple crayon that they hang on to. Something that they know is going to be there. That they can call upon when the going gets tough. Do you have your purple crayon? Now, in our story this morning, Harold created his adventure. His purple crayon helped him to create a whole new world. And when it started to get out of hand, it also brought him back to safety. He never let it out of his hand until he was safe back at home in his bed and fell asleep. In 1776, John Adams constantly writes to Abigail, and she writes to him. And Thomas Jefferson pines for his wife. And in Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton sings a whole song about writing his way out when he's in trouble. Sometimes that actually gets him into more trouble at one point. But he writes and he writes. And he has his family. Who are there for him. And his friends. Who stand by him and one another. And in Independence Day, Will Smith and his fighter pilot buddies, they have a ritual with cigars. They can't fly a mission without their cigars. And Jeff Goldblum's father, played by Judd Hirsch, he is handed a siddur, a prayer book, a Jewish prayer book. During the most intense moments when they're about to go into battle against the aliens. And he sits down with a group of people huddled in the bunker in Area 51. And they pray together. In uncertain times, one of the most important things we can do is to know what our anchors are, to find them, and to use them. Now, in a few weeks, if you're the kind of person who reads ahead and knows this, or maybe this hasn't been published yet, in a few weeks, in August, we're going to have a service to bless our home altars. Well, perhaps you don't have a home altar yet, but you can make one. Maybe you have one already, and this will be your opportunity to have it blessed. Many people find that this is a grounding and useful thing, an anchor to have, an altar at home. What goes on an altar at home? Well, it really depends on what speaks to you personally. We are a non-creedal faith. We are a covenantal faith. And part of that covenant is that we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And also that we encourage each other towards spiritual growth. So perhaps you have a Buddha or a Bodhisattva, and perhaps you make offerings. That might be your altar. You don't even need a table. You could have your altar on the floor. I have cats. I can't put my altar on the floor. But all you need is a small table or a box or a small area on a piece of furniture, and you can place your items there. Any place that works for you, that can be a small refuge, even in your own home. Perhaps a prayer book is important to you. This is one of the Siddurs, the Jewish prayer books that I received for my bat mitzvah, and I will put this on my altar. This is a nautilus shell. This represents for me the most beautiful and divine number. Perhaps you don't think of numbers as divine or holy. Perhaps you do. But this represents the golden mean, and so this will go on my altar. You might want to put a candle or a chalice on your altar, perhaps a special piece of artwork or a craft that you made or that someone made for you. Perhaps a special poem or reading. The important thing is that it's important for you and will help you focus and will be like a small sanctuary for you. You might want to put a small cloth or a large cloth on the table or whatever you're using. And in a few more weeks, we will have a blessing of these home altars. You are invited, you will be invited to send photos in, and we can share them with one another as a way to remind us that in the midst of uncertainty, there are things that will continue to ground us. There are things that we can lean on. We have purple crayons. The way is leading on, and we don't know where it's going. We don't. And we have some choices. We could retreat from the world. We could. Or we could continue to work to build the beloved community, to work to make the world a better place, even though we don't know the end of the story yet. But we do know that we are not doing this work alone. That there are others here with us. That we can be grounded. That we can lean on each other. We are going, heaven knows where we are going. But we know within and we will be there for one another. And whether you are a 1776 aficionado, whether you are all about Team Hamilton, just like your country, young, scrappy, and hungry, or whether you are all about Independence Day, big explosions, and saving the world, there is a place for you on this journey. We are all in this together. Namaste.